All right, let's begin. So hopefully everyone can hear me and see my screen. If you can't, definitely let me know in chat. But really excited for today's lecture. It's going to build really nicely on yesterday or on Mondays. So on Monday, hopefully everyone had a chance to go through, watch the recording, or attend live. It was all about using advanced segments and audiences with Google Analytics. And as you're going to see in this lecture and in the lectures to come, those audiences become really important for a variety of different use cases and advanced topics. So today in particular, we're going to be talking about attribution and remarketing. So we'll spend, I think, maybe the first quarter of the lecture on attribution, bringing you guys up to speed on how Google Analytics assigns credit and what you guys can do to really take that to the next level and really understand how your marketing in general and your campaigns are working. And then we'll spend a pretty good chunk of this webinar on remarketing, because that really is going to be one of the most powerful integrations and something you guys can all do to have immediate actionability with insights and actions, which is really rare and almost impossible to do with an analytics platform. So let's go ahead and get started. So just some quick reminders. Our class on 4.5 is rescheduled to 4.24. I'll be down in San Antonio at Conversion XL. Hopefully a few of you will be there. Would love to meet you in person. But that particular class we're going to schedule at the end. So one more class added on. Just another reminder, the Q&A feature, while tempting, just please use chat. If you can remember to use the everyone, and so everyone can see your question, not just me, that helps the transcripts. So just use the chat function for all questions and feedback. We'll have, again, 30 to 60 minutes after this class for open Q&A. It can be about attribution. It can be about life questions, anything you want to talk about. I'm happy to have a conversation. Everything after this webinar, I'm trying to be really engaging in the Facebook group. So some tough questions have already been asked. I like that. So keep those coming. And any questions or feedback you have, definitely send those to Alex, Maddie, or myself, and we definitely appreciate that. So I'm going to try and start off every lecture with just a random fact about myself so you can get to know me better. So today, I just want to share that I love flying, and I love everything about flying. So at Analytics Pros, I'm fortunate enough to be able to travel pretty much on a bi-weekly basis to go visit clients. So almost all this travel you see on my screen is for work. This is over the last 2 years. And I love stats, so I went in and logged every one of my flights. And the shocking part is that in the past 2 years, I've basically been on an airplane for an entire month. So physically in an airplane, flying somewhere else. But I love it. I've gotten to do 2 round the world trips, and I actually like being in a plane. So maybe that's a little bit weird, but I love flying. So any questions you guys have about getting around, I definitely know a few tricks. But today, specifically for our agenda, we're going to start off by going over, again, attribution and remarketing. So we're going to do a brief refresher of campaign tagging, because it's really important to know. We'll go over some GA 101 refreshers, so everyone has kind of the same baseline of data. We'll go through an attribution deep dive. We're going to spend a lot of time in multi-channel funnels. And then, as discussed, we're going to end with remarketing, which is going to be important. And of course, time for your questions. So just as a reminder, if you don't have access to the Google Analytics demo account, or this is the first lecture you're joining, if you just search for the Google Analytics demo account, you can get access to the merchandise store and follow along with the same data set I'm using. So make sure to click on this link, add it to your Google Analytics account, so you guys can actually see the same data set if you want to follow along. But as promised, let's start off with a quick GA 101 refresher. And we're going to send these slides out after. So if you need to catch up or need any of the basics or spend some more time with it, I included all these links for you to follow along with. But some really important things to remember from the 101 course. The first is the 5 UTM parameters. If you don't remember those, there's campaign, source, medium, term, and ad content. And the most important ones to know are medium, source, and campaign. So medium is how Google Analytics tracks channels like organic, direct, referral. Sources are subsets of those. And then campaigns are how we track basically cross-channel marketing. So another thing that's going to be really important to know is how GA assigns traffic. So by simply putting Google Analytics on every page of your site, Google Analytics automatically buckets certain traffic into channels. Those would be organic, so it can track search engines. It can track referring websites, so another website that links to yours, and direct traffic. But it's important to know how GA assigns traffic, because for those 5 UTM parameters, if your business is running email or paid or maybe affiliate marketing, and you're not seeing that traffic in its own channel, you'll understand why in this in kind of this traffic flow, which means another channel is kind of stealing credit. And just a quick reminder, referral exclusion lists. I see this implemented incorrectly all the time. So in Google Analytics, especially if you moved from classic to universal, the old code to the new universal analytics, there's this feature called referral exclusion list. And your own website has to be in this list. Otherwise, if you're looking at your referral report of top referring websites, if you see your own website in that report, it means that this setting wasn't configured correctly and your own website is stealing credit from other traffic sources. And we'll cover that more in detail in a later lecture, but it's important to note for this. Also for campaign tagging, you guys should all know how to do campaign tagging. You should all not be using this URL builder up at the top. Instead, you should be using a spreadsheet. So your entire organization, your email, your paid, your different teams should be using a Google Sheet to organize and tag all your media. And I included a link here for you guys to use that to start organizing all of your URLs in case you don't have one. And of course, AdWords and Google Analytics are 2 Google products. You can link them together. There's no reason not to. And if you need a refresher on how to do that and the 30-second process it takes, please follow this article, because a lot of the things we're gonna do today require linking AdWords and Google Analytics together. So those are just some of the GA refreshers. So we're gonna get right into it. So kind of starting off with a question, I would love to see some answers in chat, see who can get the correct answer. When we talk about attribution in Google Analytics, so say we're looking at the traffic sources reports, what does the default model of Google Analytics use? So for example, if I'm going into GA and I'm going and looking at my acquisition report, I'm looking at all traffic and I'm in my source medium, Google's going to associate transactions and our goals with a particular conversion. So we can see in chat that a lot of people are saying it's last touch. Ahmed actually got the more correct answer. So it's not technically last touch. Instead, it's actually last non-direct, which is the default model GA uses in all of its core reports. So it's important to know what last non-direct really means. And simply it means that direct as a traffic source, so this is row number 3, never takes credit away from another traffic source. Meaning if, for example, I come on Monday to the Google Merchandise Store from Google Organic, and then Tuesday I type in the Merchandise Store directly into the browser, direct traffic is not reported for that second visit. Instead, both visits are assigned to Google Organic. And if you ever do any sort of emails, that's why often you'll see people coming from emails 3 to 6 months after you originally sent that email, which doesn't really make sense. No one goes back and looks at old emails. And you'll see that happen a lot of times because of that last non-direct model, where Google is really trying hard to give credit to any traffic source that's not direct. And that makes a lot of sense to me, I think, at least as far as a default model, because you wouldn't want, for example, your paid ads to lose credit to a direct traffic source. So in the default reports, the way Google Analytics does its calculations is last non-direct. So all the traffic sources are recorded, except direct if there was a previous traffic source. And to get a bit more advanced, since this is an advanced class, the campaign timeout is 6 months. So anyone coming from a traffic source it will keep that traffic source for up to 6 months until either a new traffic source is introduced that's not direct, like organic, email, referral, or that 6 months elapses, and then the next time the user comes to the site, direct will be reported as direct traffic. So this direct traffic here is really truly direct traffic, meaning it's people who have never come to your site from any other campaign before, or it's been 6 months since their last marketing activity and they came directly to your site. Otherwise, all of those traffic sources are consumed by whatever it was previously. So that's important to know. So what we're gonna do today, since this is really kind of an intermediate course, is we're gonna move beyond some of the basics. So there's a few really important things you need to know to be able to do attribution and reporting correctly for campaigns and your marketing channels. So the first thing is the traffic sources that you're dealing with are almost always going to be messy. There's going to be issues, especially if you're in a more medium or large business. The reason why is when you get into campaign tagging, you're dependent on a person or a technology like your email platform tagging your channels and your campaigns. So you're either going into that spreadsheet and you're manually adding the UTM parameters, or maybe exact target or MailChimp is auto tagging your emails. Either way, you're going to end up in situations where, for example, maybe one day your email team uses email lowercase, and another day your team comes in and they do email uppercase. So what's really nice here is it's important to note that we have a concept called channel groupings. So the UTM parameters that I talked about at the beginning of this lecture are really just the building blocks for the default attribution model in GA of how it groups your traffic. If we change our view to this channels report, the difference between the source medium and the channels is your source medium is the raw parameters. It's what you actually put on the UTMs, whereas the channels, there's some groupings that Google does automatically behind the scenes. And if you just Google Analytics channel groupings, they'll show you the rules. But as an example, if we go to the source medium report and we were to look for social traffic, so by default, for all of your Google Analytics accounts, social is not grouped together as a channel unless you're tagging it and grouping it yourself. So if we search for social in the Google Merchandise Store, we can see there's 136 visits from social networks. But if I go back to that channels report, we'll see in this channels report that social actually, I think, had over 10,000 visits. So right here, social in the channels report has 13,000. The reason why is if we go back to the source medium report, by default, Google Analytics tracks social as a referral. So if I search for Facebook, we're gonna see Facebook as a referring website right here. Now we can see there's much more traffic now that we're pulling it out as a referral. So something that's really important for your organization to do is track social media. The reason why is by default, if you're not tagging your social posts, meaning if you post a link on Facebook and that link is sending traffic to your site and you're not adding those UTM parameters to it, all of that traffic will get grouped as this generic Facebook referral bucket, meaning you have no ability to differentiate the traffic that your Facebook page and your efforts on your Facebook channel are driving to your site versus everyone else that might be talking about you on their own social pages. So if you want to do the earned versus owned social analysis, it's really important that you go in and you tag your social and you use a medium of social, and then that way you know that that medium is your social traffic, and anything that's from the referral bucket is other people talking about you on social networks. But back to the channels report, as I mentioned, this is where Google is automatically doing some groupings of different sources and mediums to pull it into buckets. So as an example, it'll pull display out of CPC and paid. It'll pull social out of referral and group it all as one social channel. But this is the default grouping. What's important to know here is you have your ability to actually go in and create your own channel groupings. And to show that, what I need to do is I need to quickly switch to an account where I actually have admin access. So in these reports, what we can do is if you go into the admin section of Google Analytics, there's a section in here for custom channel groupings. So you can actually go into here and you can define your own channels. So this is really important, especially for a lot of cleanups. So for example, oftentimes I'll see with UTM parameters where someone will switch source and medium. So one day the source is Facebook and the medium social, and another day the medium social and the source is Facebook. So in these channel groupings, you can actually come in and you can add all of this logic and say, for example, that anything that contains medium contains Facebook, you can call this social. And you can start to add on all these different rules and associate your own groupings of channels. So we don't have time right now to go through a full channel grouping build. It's pretty simple to use. But what's important is the type of analysis you can do on your campaigns and actually make it part of the default GA experience. So one thing you could do, for example, if you're doing paid, is you could build a channel for branded keywords and you could build a separate channel for non-branded keywords. And then Google will group that separately and allow you to do your analysis on that. If you're doing emails, you can segment maybe off your different lists or your different email types. Maybe you have engagement emails where you're trying to get them more engaged with your product or your SaaS. And maybe you have new logo or acquisition campaigns. And those are going to perform very differently. So this allows the organization through the defaults to have that default granular view of your traffic sources. And then through the channels and the channel groupings, you can easily come in and you can define your own groupings. All right, so that's just a little bit about the default campaign reports in GA and channel groupings. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna take some of that base knowledge and we're gonna take it to the next level. So as I mentioned, the default way Google Analytics does attribution in all these reports is last non-direct. So the next kind of sophistication or evolution of attribution for your business and for yourself is going to be using multi-channel funnels. So multi-channel funnels is a suite of reports that you can find in the conversion section underneath the multi-channel funnels option. So we're gonna start off here and we're gonna use this to answer some really important questions. So I put these in the Facebook group yesterday to get you guys thinking about a few of these. But questions that you should be able to answer simply by attending our lecture today is one, do you need to be thinking about or having a discussion about attribution? Two, what is the consideration period for my users? Meaning, how long does it take them to buy from when they first know or visit my website? Three, how many sessions does it take my users to convert? Do they convert in 1 visit, 5 visits, 10 visits? Because that's gonna give you a very different picture of attribution and reporting. And four, how can we start to answer questions about how my channels overlap, how they work together, maybe where there's gaps, different ways for optimization. So to answer the first question of, do I need an attribution model? The second and third question will help you answer this. So this type of question, I can answer pretty confidently. So there are certain businesses and different sort of acquisition types where you could use whatever attribution model you want in the world because it ends up not mattering. And that typically happens when your consideration period is immediate, right? It's someone that knows what they want, or they find you, they come to the site, and either they convert or they never convert. And if that happens more than 80% of the time for your particular business, it doesn't really matter if you use first or last or linear or assisted, because they're all roughly should return the same results because there's only a single touch. So the way we can use multi-channel funnels to start answering some of these questions is we can start with the time lag report. So there's a few really important things to know about how multi-channel funnels works. First, this is a linear attribution model, meaning every traffic source gets equal credit. Also, direct traffic is reported as direct traffic in multi-channel funnels. It's really the only place in Google Analytics you can see the true impact of direct traffic. So direct traffic will actually be reported as direct, even if there's another traffic source present. So some things to use this correctly. The first is the date range selector. So you can come in, you can select any date range, but the way it works is right now I'm looking at the last 30 days. What I can do is I can come in and I can select a goal or a conversion. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm actually gonna switch back to the Google Merchandise Store because I like to use revenue. So I'm back in the Google Merchandise Store, and in here we can select a conversion. So we can see the conversion options that we have in here. So if you're a Google Analytics 360 customer and you use DoubleClick, you can use floodlights. If you're using either version of Google Analytics, you'll have access to goals and e-commerce. So the first thing you need to do is come in and select a conversion that you care about. So if you're not in e-commerce, you should select one of your goals, such as filling out your lead form, downloading a white paper, signing up for more information, whatever it is that your main goal for your business is. But since this is an e-commerce store, I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna select just my transactions. And the way this report works is for the date range you're looking at, it's going to take every conversion that happened in that date range. So any conversion that happened from the 27th to the 28th, meaning that that conversion happened on the 27th, then that conversion is included in this report. But if the conversion happened on the 26th or 29th, it's not in this report right now. And if you look at the top, we have a look back window. Right now, the default way this works is it's a 30-day look back window, but you can change this up to 90 days. The way this works with the date range is Google takes any conversion, so an example of a conversion on the 27th, and it'll look back up to 30 days prior to that conversion and show you all the traffic sources that led to that particular conversion. So the look back window occurs prior to the date range from the first date. So from the 28th to the 27th, it's doing 30 days previous for each of those days to pull in all of the traffic sources. And it looks like Reneto asked, just to be clear, multi-channel funnels is not last non-direct. That is correct. This is a linear attribution model, and that'll become clear when you look at the top conversions path, meaning that every traffic source is given equal credit and shown equally. Okay, so now you know how to select a conversion type, you know how to select a date, and you know a little bit about the look back window. So now we can look at the report. So what is this telling us? If the Google Merchandise Store is our business, I can simply look at this report and I know that 62% of my conversions and 60% of my revenue, which is the conversion value, occurs in 0 days. Meaning the date of the first visit is when that conversion happens. But what that tells me is roughly 40% of my conversions happen from people that convert 1 to 30 days later after they first visit. And in fact, about 20% of the conversions and almost 23% convert 12 to 30 days later. And you could expand this for the breakdown by day if you want. So this tells me for the Google Merchandise Store, attribution is absolutely an important topic, because if I'm simply using a single touch conversion metric, I may be misattributing more than 40% of my conversions. And I can see that right here because they're converting more than 1 day later. And to get deeper, you can go to the path length report and we can answer the question of how many visits, or in the multi-channel funnels report, we usually refer to these as touches. How many touches does it take before someone converts? So again, there's our 2,000 conversions, our $400,000 of revenue. Only 36% of that occurs in a single touch, meaning one visit is the same visit they convert. That means 64% of my conversions to the Google Merchandise Store convert in 2 or more visits. So even though we saw that 60% converted in the same day, we know that over 40% convert in more than 1 day, over 60% are converting in 2 or more visits. So even if they convert in the same day, they're still likely having multiple visits within that same day before they buy. So here's how we can actually see all of that distribution by the number of touches that are happening. So it looks like the vast majority of the conversions for the Google Merchandise Store happen between 1 to 3 days. And that's that. So depending on your business, if you're more of a high value item, you'll see your distribution might be very different than this. And if it ends up being where almost everything is in this single touch, then it doesn't really matter what you use for attribution. These reports I don't think will be that important to you. But as you're maybe adding marketing or different sophistication, or maybe working with a different type of business, then these become much more important topics and discussions. All right, so that's how we can answer a little bit about the attribution, the consideration, and how many touches it takes someone to convert. So let's get a little bit deeper. So the top conversions path is where I think it really starts to all become clear what's really happening here. So this is where we can really start to see that linear model in action. So again, we have our conversion type. We're just looking at transactions, but you can change this for any micro or macro. What we can also do here is we can change the path length. And I definitely recommend you always come in and you change the path length in this report. By default, it only shows you 2 or more touches, meaning it's only assisted conversions. It's not showing you conversions when a user came and converted in a single visit. But you can see the single touch and the assisted together by selecting all. So that's what we'll do here. So by selecting all, now you can see I have all my conversions back and all my revenue. And if we scroll down, we can see the top conversion paths for our users. So what are the top paths that our users come through to convert? And we can actually see each channel side by side. So I had 105 conversions where the user came from referral, another website, then came from and visited me from a search engine, and that was worth $23,000 for my business. So the way I use this, just at a high level for discussions around attribution or channel analysis, is you can come in and you can enter a channel. So we can search for paid as an example. And what this allows me to do is to see what's the maximum amount of credit does this channel could potentially be worth, right? If I was giving equal credit, no matter where paid traffic happened in a conversion, I can see here that paid traffic was 37 conversions worth $4,700 to my business. And here is exactly where paid occurred. So there's one instance where paid was last, but it looks like here, the vast majority of conversions from paid is where paid is the first touch. So this tells me right here that paid as a channel is doing really great at being upper funnel. It's actually being the acquisition source that's getting them to know about my business. And then it looks like my other channels most often actually influence them coming back and converting. So my users are coming back, they're either finding me again from another site, maybe they're doing some research on Google, or by that second visit, they've gained brand awareness and then entered my site direct and came and visited me. So the cool part about this is when we start to combine this with what we talked about on Monday, like our secondary dimensions, if you remember your UTM parameters, you have the ability to get as granular as you want in multi-channel funnels. So if you wanted to find a particular email, or you wanted to find a particular campaign that you're running in AdWords, you can come in, you can enter campaign, source, medium, ad content, keyword, and all of these are available for you to see where exactly those fit in. So for example, if you're running AdWords campaigns, most AdWords accounts will have upper funnel, they'll have middle funnel, so they'll have some remarketing, they'll have some brand campaigns, and now you have the ability to use this report to see if and where those campaigns are actually working together. Are your branding campaigns bringing new traffic, and are your marketing campaigns coming in and closing that, or are they not really helping at all? So you can do that to come in and actually see exactly where those campaigns are coming in to do granular campaign level analysis and see how that's working with your other marketing efforts. So that is the quick overview to multi-channel funnels. So this is gonna really take you and evolve you from that last non-direct and give you the ability to report at a campaign level and understand exactly where and when your different traffic sources fit in, So you can do your optimization around that. And you can finally answer questions about how does email even influence conversions? Is email in the middle? Is it at the end? Are they coming from multiple emails before they particularly convert? But how is it working when it leads to a particular outcome? So quick recommendations just to kind of end this part. One, goals. You have to have goals to use Google Analytics correctly. So if your account doesn't have goals set up, you need to spend some time this week on setting up your micro and macro conversions, because without it, you can't use multi-channel funnels and really a lot of the other reports in GA. And if you're doing e-commerce, obviously set up the e-commerce so you can get the revenue and transactions in here as well. All right, so that was my overview for multi-channel funnels. So what we're gonna do right now is we're gonna talk a little bit about remarketing. So the first thing I need to touch on is AdWords and Google Analytics. So they are best together because Google owns both products, and the whole reason Google Analytics is free is because of AdWords. There is some really powerful integrations between these. So what is important to note is that Google Analytics, AdWords, DoubleClick if you're on 360, Google's actually built native connectors between these products. So you just have to click a few buttons and everything connects. So why do you care about AdWords and Google Analytics together? And why, if you have a paid marketing resource or team, should they care about using Google Analytics instead of just using AdWords directly? The reason why is if you're an AdWords user, so this is a report from AdWords, this is really all you see. You're gonna be able to see all of your campaigns, your ad groups, you'll be able to see your CPC, your cost, your clicks, and your conversions. What's missing here is the optimization that most of your ad team is doing is either off of a click or it's off of a conversion. I can't count how many times I've seen great campaigns that drive clicks but no conversions that have been turned off. And the reason why they were underperforming is not because they were bad campaigns. It's because there's actually something wrong or something that could have been done better on the website itself. So all this traffic from AdWords is being driven to the site. And then there's a bunch of stuff that happens on the site, right? They land on the landing page. They learn about the product. Then they should click on a call to action, go to something else, and then hopefully on that page, they're going through and converting to do the action you care about. None of that insight is available in AdWords by default. All of that insight is available when you connect AdWords and Google Analytics together. So your team can easily come in and see all of their clicks, costs, sessions, bounce rate, all of that engagement information side by side to really see the full user journey of that to do optimization end to end, which is really important for driving high value campaigns that have positive ROI. There's different levers you pull in AdWords, and there's definitely different levers you can pull on your own website. So just as a quick use case, I always like doing these. So one, landing page optimization. So most AdWords and people who are running paid media don't think about landing pages at all. And landing pages are so important to understand, right? Most traffic that you drive from AdWords, so if we were to go and we were to look at our source medium report and we were to isolate our paid traffic, the bounce rate for these pages are usually pretty bad for paid, and it's just the nature of that. So if we were to search for CPC or paid, all of those bounce rates are likely 80% or higher. There's not a lot of traffic, but for your business, that's likely going to be that, and that's normal. But that's 80% of the traffic who clicked on an ad, so they qualified themselves, something about the ad interested them. They got to that page, and then something about the page lost their interest, and they left. So what can you do to help that? One is, if we go to the behavior section, we go to site content, and we go to landing pages, your paid team can do landing page analysis with this connection really easily. So as an example, you can come in and you can select your comparison. So this is one of my favorite hidden features of GA. So what we can do is we can use a benchmark, right? So I can benchmark all of my landing pages by my bounce rate and find which landing pages are underperforming or overperforming. So I know that my Waze page is performing 28% worse than the average of my site, and my Nest page is performing 38% better. This class is all about getting more specific though. And we can do that by adding a secondary dimension of medium. And I can come in and I can isolate just all of my paid landing pages. So I can come in here and I can say, just show me any paid landing page, so any medium that contains CPC. And now I can compare all of my paid landing pages side by side. So the average for my paid pages is 33%. And now I can see each page individually. And I can use this to try and do some on-site optimization to have an impact on the paid media that I'm running to my site. And you're not limited for doing this just for AdWords. You can do this for Facebook. You can do this for any traffic source. But this is a way, just thinking about it from an advertising perspective, of using this and the connection to drive action. And this is a really important part for the optimization piece. Another use case of why AdWords and GA together is display. And this one you can't do with any other platform. So if you're running display campaigns, so the rich media ads on Google and their partner networks, there is a concept of display called view-throughs, where it's people who saw a display ad, so they saw it in press, right? So don't judge me by what's on my Facebook, but if I were to go to Facebook right now, we can look at how Facebook does a lot of its reporting, right? So we go to Facebook, all these display ads or rich media ads are gonna display on the right-hand side. And Facebook's gonna have a column of view-throughs, right? They're gonna show you this many people saw that ad, then they somehow got to your website and they converted. And the question is always, what percentage of those people actually converted from seeing a display ad, right? Would they have converted without seeing it? Did they already know about us? And those are questions as a marketer you can't really answer, and you never can. But with Google Analytics and AdWords, if you're running display through DoubleClick or AdWords, you have the ability to answer this. So I'll show you what that looks like. So if we go back to multi-channel funnels and we go back to the top conversions paths, you might have saw this if you were looking closely before when we looked at paid by itself. But what I can do here is I can search for display. So if you're running display on AdWords, you can enable a feature called view-through reporting in multi-channel funnels. To be clear, this feature is not on by default. You'll need to ask your AdWords representative to enable it for you. So if you're running AdWords, just reach out to AdWords support and ask them to turn on view-throughs for multi-channel funnels in Google Analytics. And then when you come in here, you'll see a report just like this. So this is telling me I had 255 conversions from display, which was worth $50,000 of my business. And in here, the eyeballs are view-through impressions, and the non-eyeballs are your click-throughs. So what I can do here is I can actually start to make some educated analysis on the actual impact of my display. So I could argue probably pretty well that for our conversion path for number 1, 6, 7, 8, and 9, where the users came to our website direct, then saw a display ad, then came back direct, I'm probably fairly confident that display had nothing to do with that conversion, and they likely would have converted without that. But for example, number 4, where the first interaction, this 3 conversions happened, or sorry, 3 conversions and $1,000, that view through was the first thing they saw. Then they later came back referral and direct. I'm more confident that when it's more at the top of the funnel, that display is more appropriate for it to get more credit than when it's deeper in. So using this, you can actually start to slice up your displays, and you can come in and you can add your campaigns or source mediums, and you can start to really unpack what really is a view-through conversion and when is it actually appropriate, and use this to assign the actual ROI for your display and your media. So there's no other platform that can really do this, and you can only do this because AdWords and Google Analytics share it together. And it's available for both the free and the premium version. So you can do this with the free version of Google Analytics. You just need to email your AdWords rep and ask them to enable the view through conversions for multi-channel funnels. And it only works for display, just to be clear. All right, let's go back to our slides. There was a question from Ahmed. Is there a time frame between view and the next session for the view to be recorded? No, there's no time frame. Remember, in Google Analytics, by default, any new traffic source creates a new visit. The display impressions will not create a new visit, but multi-channel funnels will inject them at the right time because it has the timestamps that it needs to do that. So that should answer your question. So you'll be able to see everything you need. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about right now a little bit about the remarketing integration. And this one is just so important to note because, again, this is one of the few places in any analytics tool like Adobe, Omniture, GA, WebTrends. GA has a unique integration to actually take action, and they allow you to do this through AdWords with this remarketing feature. So let's talk a little bit about remarketing with Google Analytics. So first, why remarketing, right? So remarketing is really important because it's an ability for you to spend your marketing budget on highly qualified traffic. So when we're doing remarketing, we're building an audience and we're engaging with them when they've done something on our website. Most people will do it by an audience of anyone who visited the website and left. They'll start showing an ad or showing messaging. But you can do more specific, right? You can target people who bought and show them related products. You can target people who abandon a specific product, like Amazon does it all the time. You'll see that product as soon as you leave the site and don't buy it. But remarketing is important because when we're looking at an ROI perspective, remarketing campaigns tend to be some of the most profitable from a cost and a revenue perspective. So Google Analytics, as I mentioned, has a native connection with AdWords to do remarketing with Google Analytics. Why would you want to do this? So this is the way most businesses do remarketing. I call this traditional remarketing. It involves using pixels or tags where you go into AdWords as an example, you'd grab a conversion tag or remarketing tag, you take that, and then you need to find someone on your team to add that to your site. So you need to go to your IT or developers and ask them to add a tag on every page. And that takes time. Then you have to wait for that list to populate. So all of those cookie lists for Facebook and AdWords, when you're adding those tags, it's basically building a cookie pool. And you're gonna have to wait a few days for it to have enough audience to start serving those ads. And then the scope is limited, right? So if I add a conversion tag on every page, yes, I can target anyone who's been to my website, but I can't necessarily target people who visited from a certain geography, or maybe do someone who visited more than 5 pages, or converted with more than $100 in their cart. So the scope is limited to what you thought about when you added that tag. But the real reason really is time. Traditional remarketing takes time and the lists are limited. So you're dependent on someone else to help you drive those remarketing campaigns. And that always causes friction and just slows things down in a way that's not good. So this is one of the reasons why Google Analytics made this integration. It's native. Everyone here today in this lecture can create a remarketing list and send it to AdWords without talking to any developer. You can create live remarketing lists that yourself and your team can use immediately. You can leverage all of the data on your users, meaning everything you're tracking about your users in Google Analytics, you can use to build a target, a segment, and then send that off to take action on. The lists are pre-populated. You don't have to wait. Every list automatically does a 10-day look-back window, and it'll immediately start targeting those users who match those conditions. And you can create targets that you would never be able to do with pixels. So doing something like creating an audience who had more than $500 in the cart and viewed more than 10 pages and was from Germany. That's gonna be some thinking you'd have to do that somewhere else. But those ridiculous combinations you could easily do in these audiences if you want. So let's talk about what remarketing actually looks like, and then I'll show you exactly how to use this integration. So I'm sure you guys have all seen this, but this is remarketing done wrong. So this is me on a daily basis. The first thing I do in the morning is I come in, I open my email, I try and figure out what's on fire, what's on not, what I need to do for the day. I use my email as my zero inbox, so it's my to-do list. So I'll go in my email, and then I'll get bored. I'll go to Insightly. I'll start looking at my CRM, figure out what I need to do, what customers I need to talk to. Insightly is our version of Salesforce. So go to Gmail, I go to Insightly, and then I get distracted, and I'm almost always on Facebook within 10 minutes. It's just how I am. And if you can see here, there's cute pictures of dogs to distract me. But also on the right-hand side, even though I'm in Insightly, I'm seeing ads for Insightly to sign up free. And you can see that right here. I am logged into the product, and at the same time, I'm seeing ads on Facebook. So this is what Criteo is doing. And Criteo is serving ads for people who are already customers. And this is a complete waste. I am in Insightly every single day. There is nothing this ad is doing to get me to use their product more. Instead, I like to click on it and then see eventually if it'll ever stop targeting me, but it hasn't yet. So this is just wasted ad spend, and it's money that could be going to other efforts and activities. And when I see this all the time for my clients, when I do my initial audits or my initial analysis, where they're targeting their own customers with ads. And sure, there's examples where you're going to want to do that to increase engagement, but targeting your everyday users with ads to sign up for your product, I think we can all agree is a waste. So why is it so hard? Well, the reasons are the developers can't add conversion tags, or the platform doesn't support adding it, or it just takes time, or no one cares, which is the worst reason yet. So what you're gonna learn today is that all of you can control this, at least for AdWords and anything through Google, by yourself immediately. So how to not waste your ad spend is a great use case to talk about this. So in Google Analytics, on Monday, I'm losing track of all my days. So Fred said he sells ads for this course all the time. So maybe we should talk to Conversion XL after and help them get this up and running. That's a good use case. So on Monday, we used audiences, right? So you can create an audience, and you can come in here and say, I want to create an audience of anyone who converted. So what I can do is I can say, I'll create a segment, and I'll say conditions. I could do something generic, and I can say goal completions. So anyone who completed any of my goals. Or I could say transactions is greater than 0. Or I could pick a particular goal, like clicked on luxury travel. So if they did that and per session it was greater than 1, what I can say is I want to include anyone who converted. So per session is greater than 0 is the right way to do this. And I could call this my converters. So this is how we build an audience in GA, right? And now we can know everything about this audience, what they did, what they looked at. But the magic happens is when you've connected AdWords and Google Analytics together. So I don't have admin access to the merchandise store, but I do have admin access in Analytics Pros. What we can do is you can take this segment, and if you click the arrow on the right-hand side, you can click Build Audience. You can do this if you're a collaborator or hire, and you've linked AdWords to Google Analytics. What happens here is it takes you into the admin settings. You say, okay, where do I want to link this to? I want to link this to my AdWords account. I want to give it a name, so I'll call this my converters as an example. You assign a membership duration, and I'll look back if you'd like, and then you click Save. What happens is this audience that we just created is immediately available back over in AdWords. So if I go into AdWords, and I have AdWords open on the other screen, but I also have it here in my slides. But back over in AdWords, if you go into your shared library in audiences, that audience will immediately be available. So these are our users that converted. Better yet, it also builds lookalike audiences for you out of the box. So this, similar to users that converted, is a lookalike audience that AdWords builds based off of the different data it has on users it thinks is also likely to engage and be similar to come in and convert. So you also have a wider audience of that as well. Now, if we go into the actual campaigns, so if I was running a campaign and that was my new sign up for Insightly, all I would have to do is go into the campaign, select the audiences, and then add it as an exclusion. So I go into exclusions, I select users that converted, and by myself, in 60 seconds, I've now prevented my customers that have converted from seeing my own ads. And if I wanted to, what I could do is I could also create another audience and actually say, let's actually try a new campaign and target the similar audience and see how that compares to my generic audience that I'm targeting to get traffic to come in and convert. So a great way to compare and see if there's a better ROI you can be getting by using Google's similar audience list. But that's it. So this is so powerful because you can do all sorts of remarketing with this. So there's just general remarketing, right? So you can create an audience. An example is the one we did on Monday, if you remember. We created an audience based off of engagement. Let's take a look at our audiences that were on our site for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or 15 minutes, or viewed 5 pages, 10 pages, and 15 pages. And what we saw when we used that audience was the more engaged our users are, the more likely they were to convert. And this can make you so much smarter than everyone else who's doing remarketing and all of your competitors, because the way most companies do remarketing is they'll treat every user equally. Meaning, if you come to the site and you leave, most businesses will treat every one of those users exactly the same, right? So regardless if I viewed 5 pages and someone else viewed 10 pages, there's just a generic remarketing budget that's treating every user equally, and we're paying for them exactly the same. But by using those audiences of say 5, 10, or 15, we can start to do bid adjustments. So AdWords will allow you to do bid adjustments and prioritize your budgets on your campaign to audiences in an order. So you can say, okay, for this campaign where I'm doing general remarketing, first, I want to target anyone who visited more than 10 pages and didn't convert. And I want to make sure they see my ads first and they see them in the first position. And then with the leftover ad budget, after those are running, you can use that to target anyone else who's been on my site. So that way you can actually start to qualify your users and actually optimize your ad spend and allocate it to your most valuable users first, and then use the rest for whatever you want. So just using that for general remarketing is a no-brainer. Another one you can do with Google Analytics is RLSA. This stands for Remarketing Lists for Search Ads. Remarketing Lists for Search Ads. If I'm the Google Merchandise Store, I'm selling all sorts of things, right? I'm selling shirts, I'm selling hats, I'm selling dog bowls, all these different things. It would be a horrible idea if I was the campaign manager for Google Merchandise Store to bid for a generic keyword like t-shirt, right? Who knows what type of t-shirt people are looking for? They might be looking for a custom t-shirt. They might be looking for a V-neck, which I don't have in stock. It's just generic, and I would probably spend my entire ad spend on this keyword and get no conversions. What Remarketing Lists for Search Ads allows you to do is it allows you to build a list of qualified traffic. So you qualify the audience. In this case, I could, if I'm the Google Merchandise Store, I can build an audience of anyone who looked at any of my shirts pages. I can send that to AdWords, and then what I can do is I can say, okay, Google, I'm only gonna bid for the keyword t-shirt, only if they've been to my site before and they've actually looked for a t-shirt. So this allows you to enter auctions for highly competitive or generic keywords that you would otherwise never touch because they're too expensive or too prohibitive. And you can say, okay, I'm gonna enter those, but only for this set of qualified audience. So this is a way you can take limited ad spend and you can be highly competitive for keywords that maybe you couldn't necessarily compete with your competition on before. So RLSA is a great use case for this remarketing integration for GA. There's also some other things that you guys can read up on later. There's smart lists. So Google has smart lists based off of machine learning, what it'll build audiences it thinks are important for you. I don't really use those too much. What's important to note is there's state-based audiences. So state-based audiences means you can set permanent conditions. So for example, if you wanted to permanently remove anyone that converted from a campaign, you have the ability to set state-based conditions to make sure they're never again included in that campaign. You can also do dynamic remarketing. So if we were to go into the admin section and go look closely at the audience, see where I'm at right now. There's an ability to do dynamic remarketing. So in the audiences section, so this is in AdWords, you can also create those audiences directly in here. You can see all the ones you've created, but there's also a section for dynamic attributes. So this is an ability, depending on the custom dimensions and different data you're tracking about your site, you can actually come in and you can set metadata from GA and actually surface that in the ads. So another quick way to actually do kind of dynamic targeting, where you can actually surface product names, product IDs, page titles, different types of things in the ads itself, if you want to try and make them more relevant. And then if you have a client or you're using DoubleClick, the DoubleClick Bid Manager integration is available for 360 only. And that's how Google Analytics can actually target non-Google networks. So through DoubleClick Bid Manager, for example, you could reach Bing and you could start to actually do dynamic remarketing from GA on third-party ad networks. But with the free version of Google Analytics, we're limited to just Google networks. So Google Display, Google Search, etc. But with Google being 90% of search traffic, this is a huge feature for you guys to use for that. So that's all I had for remarketing. So kind of to wrap everything up, today we went through a quick overview around how Google Analytics does attribution, the importance of campaign tagging, why you need it, how you can start to do channel groupings to build your own definitions of channels or subset of channels, like brand versus non-brand. And then we spent a lot of time in multi-channel funnels, where you can actually start to get more sophisticated with attribution by using a linear model, simply to know how things work or don't work together. And then we learned that through this remarketing integration, we have an ability to create audiences and immediately reach and interact with them on the Google ad networks. So with this should wrap up our attribution and remarketing lecture pretty nicely. So we have, I think, roughly the next 30 minutes to do Q&A. If you're gonna drop off early, our next lecture on 4.3 is on custom dimensions, custom metrics, calculated metrics, event tracking, and more. So we're gonna start getting away from some of the default reports in GA and learn how to really customize it to match your business and your use cases. So definitely encourage you to come and attend that. We're gonna actually get a little bit of code, much more sophistication, and start to build on top of that. But with that, what questions have I not answered? Go ahead and enter those in the chat. So there was a question from Kylie about adding your own channel groupings. And the question was, doesn't change GA's default channel grouping, does it? So this is something you can definitely read up on after. In the channel groupings section, there's a default channel setting and then there's your custom channel setting. So if we go to the channel settings up here, there's a channel groupings. If you modify this, it will modify the default channel groupings, and it's permanent and only from today forward. If you go into the custom channel groupings or create your own with the plus button, you can create your own definitions that won't impact it. So definitely, I would never recommend changing your default channel groupings unless you've really thought about it pretty hard. There was a question about the membership duration and the look back window from Ahmed. So if we go back into our audience creation, so I'm going to show you that in this here. So we can look at a new audience. So when we're creating this audience, there's a concept of a look back window and a membership duration. So the way this works is the look back window is going to look for the conditions you've set and apply those over that particular date range, right? So it'll only look back previous to 7 days, and in this instance is looking for anyone who visited to my site. But maybe instead you're gonna look at people who converted, and it's gonna do a look back window up to 7 days before. And you can see that by hovering over the question mark. The membership duration, what this does is it's how long a user remains in the audience, right? So this is really important for ads. So one of the things that drives me crazy about Insightly is I see ads everywhere for Insightly. I don't need to see 100 ads, right? So that's often a complaint you're gonna get from your customers or your prospects when you're not doing remarketing in a good way, is that there's too many ads. So the membership duration allows you to set how long they're in the audience, meaning, right, they're likely gonna convert in a 5-day period or they're never gonna convert. So what I can do is I can say, I only want this particular membership duration to be 5 days. And then after that, they'll stop seeing the ads. So that's one of the ways you can control and make sure you're not showing too many ads or ad impressions for your users. For alcohol, from James, I don't think you can use that. I don't think you can use it for firearms either. I know we have some firearms clients, so maybe if you had some educational pages about alcohol, that might be a fun workaround. So that might be something you want to look at, but I'm pretty sure you can't for actual sale of alcohol. But you might be able to for wine. I can't remember. Can audiences be used for dynamic remarketing that was set up in Universal Analytics, not AdWords custom dynamic tags? I need a little bit more on what audience you're trying to create or what your use case is. You can definitely use audiences for dynamic remarketing, so you can combo those. So if you were using dynamic remarketing where you're surfacing product metadata in the ad, you can apply an audience on top if you wanted to as well. Is there anywhere to use audiences outside of AdWords? Good question. There is, but not for ads. So Google Optimize, the enterprise versions, allows you to use these audiences to do personalization and targeting, which is really powerful. Data Studio, which is a free product that you guys can use today. With Data Studio, you can use the audiences for reporting and easily for kind of dashboarding and identifying the traffics you want. So that's another integration. But for ad platforms, it's AdWords. And then with the enterprise version, it's DoubleClick. And DoubleClick is how Google targets non-Google ad networks like Bing and Yahoo as an example. So that's the only way you could use those outside of Google. The other thing that's just important to note on that topic is hopefully you're using a tag management system like Google Tag Manager. So if you're using a tag management system and you know a little bit about how to use it, my colleague Jacob Schaefer is doing a course on that now. You can easily go into the tag management system and create tags for Facebook and your other ad networks, and at least give yourself some of the sophistication around this. It's not native, but it's still just about as easy, which is good. Any direction on how to use conversion segments, best practices? So for conversion segments, definitely add exclusions for your campaigns for people who have gone through that process. I really like exploring and using the lookalike models, especially versus existing campaigns. So what's the cost per click and what's the ROAS or the cost per conversion for a similar audience that AdWords uses versus a campaign that you're using natively. So those are just some of my best practices around that. Are we looking at 360 right now? Does it not have the new UI? So this is 360. This is actually right now we're looking at my own Google Analytics account. So this is ours, and this is a 360 property. So this one doesn't have the new UI, but if I go over to the Google Demo account, my Google Demo account will have the new UI. The reason why, if you want to know some fun facts, there's a few betas we have that you guys don't, and I can't really talk about, but the new UI doesn't work for those. So that's why it's not in our account. Any other questions? All right, if you guys have anything else or anything throughout the week, definitely use the Facebook group. Thank you guys so much for coming. I hope you guys have a great rest of the week, and I'll talk to you on Monday.